In section 3, we're going to switch from comparing two means to comparing two proportions. So this is going to be a little different procedure, and the calculator functions will look a little bit different because we're no longer concerned about standard deviations or means. So there are some requirements. We have two independent samples again, still simple random samples. We need our samples to be of a certain size. Okay, so we need to make sure that we have at least 5 successes and 5 failures. Okay, so bare minimum sample size is 10, but in practice it's usually bigger than that because we need to have at least 5 successes and 5 failures. Now, in order for these tests to be accurate, a growing consensus among statisticians is that the population needs to be at least 10 to 20 times the size of the sample. So I'd say at a bare minimum 10 times the size of the sample, better that it be closer to 20 times the size of the sample. In some cases we're way over that, and that's great. In other cases, we may not be, and so the results may not be quite as reliable in those cases. The calculator function that we'll use is called 2prop z-test. So it's again in that same tests menu under the stats when you press the stats button. So it should be in a familiar place. And our first example is 10.8. We're going to test, we have two types of medication for hives that are being tested to determine if there's a difference in the proportion of adult patient reactions. So 20 out of a random sample of 200 that were given medication A still had hives 30 minutes after taking the medication. 12 out of another 200 given medication B still had hives 30 minutes after taking the medication. So basically what we're measuring is how many of them still had hives 30 minutes later. So we want to test at the 1% level of significance. So all we're trying to figure out is there a difference? Okay, we're not specifically testing is A better than B or B better than A. It's just is there a difference? Are they different? So when we go to figure out our null hypothesis, it's going to be that the proportion for A is equal to the proportion for B, or we could have written this as the proportion for A minus the proportion of B equals 0. That would be exactly the same kind of thing. And since all we're looking to see is if there's a difference, then our alternative is going to be not equal. Okay, proportion for A is not equal to the proportion for B. When you put these numbers into 2prop z-test, in case you missed it, we had a sample size where N was 200 for both. Let me go back for a moment. N would be 200 for both. N1 and N2 are both 200. And then X for the first sample would be 20, and X for the second sample would be 12. Now, since we weren't being asked about which one is quote-unquote better, then it really doesn't matter whether we put in 20 and 12 or if we put in 180 and 188. Okay. Because really, if we're looking to see which one's better, we want to know how many people don't have hives anymore. So, but since we're just looking to see if there's a difference, then we can test either way, and it should be fine. So our null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, this is our p-value, 0.1404. So we were testing at the 1% significance level, so we're comparing this to an alpha of 0.01, and we can see that this is quite a bit higher than 0.01, so therefore we would decline to reject the null hypothesis, and we conclude there's not sufficient evidence to conclude that there's a difference. So really the procedure is almost the same in terms of null hypothesis, do the calculator stuff, make a conclusion, state it in terms of the original claim or thing we're supposed to test. So all of that procedure is the same. It's been the same since the start of chapter 9. It's just what function we use and how it looks in the calculator. So proportions look a little different because you're entering in x's and n's instead of x bars and sx's and n's. So looks a little different, but here are your practice opportunities, 46 through 50, and then again 99 through 100 from the homework section. So good luck with this. Let me know if you have any questions.